and PS5 jailbreak news updates. Now for PS4, the PlayStation Vue application has a few updates. These are some pretty interesting ones. So first of all, this update posted by Dr. Yen on Twitter, saying that I ended up figuring out Vue with extended storage. Vue user is the only one that is fake activated account I have. That's the example. It'll also work with PSN accounts too, not for local users. etaHEN also made a save file exploit loader, so no more system backup, it seems. So this is a pretty big deal because it will allow us to install the PlayStation Vue jailbreak on a retail console without restoring a backup file, so long as your account is activated. If you have an activated account on your PS4, you'll be able to install the Vue exploit and get it up and running. Now, the way that this works is that it uses the same technique as the Netflix and hack exploit for the PS5, which uses extended storage, an extended storage image, which already has the correct version of the application installed on that image, and then you flash that image onto your own USB or external hard drive, and then connect that to the PS4, and it will appear as an extended storage drive for the console, and you can then copy out the application to the system storage from that extended storage drive. That'll get the correct version of the application installed. But normally you also need the download0.dat file, which contains the actual exploit, and the only way to get that on a retail console was to restore a backup file. However, etaHEN seems to have solved this problem by making the exploit loadable from the save file itself instead of needing the download0.dat file anymore. And that means you just need to re-sign the save file to get it working on the PS4 to enable the exploit. So you can get the application and the exploit installed on a retail console as long as you have an activated account, and get the jailbreak up and running without having to reset your console by restoring a backup file. Now, you would still need to use the backup file if you only have local accounts on your PS4. If you do not have an activated account already on your PS4, then you would still need to restore the backup file. Now, we've also had an improvement to the manual installation method when updating from a previous jailbreak to PlayStation Vue. There is now a new Vue Initial Files installer from Lappy. So this is an application that you can install alongside the PlayStation Vue application and the Apollo Save Tool, which you just install from the package installer off a USB. And then once that's installed, you can then simply run this application and it will automatically install the download0.dat file, the etaHEN payload, and it will also install the save file for Apollo. And then once that's done, you can close the application, load the Apollo Save Tool, and copy the save file from the USB to the HDD. And that will get you up and running with the Vue jailbreak very, very quickly, as you don't have any of the manual installation to deal with. So a lot of the manual installation part is effectively automated now with this application. That's not the only update to the PlayStation Vue exploit. We've had another update here, which adds a new version, and this new version includes a Lite version. Now, the Lite version just removes the menu system with the config and payload menu and jailbreak options. All of that stuff is removed and it just runs the jailbreak. So it's like enabling the autoloader, but that's all that's in it. So as soon as you load it, it just automatically runs the jailbreak, and then it will exit the application once the jailbreak has been loaded. There is no payload menu or config menu or anything like that in the Lite version. It's just a stripped down version that only loads the jailbreak and nothing else, which is what most people are going to use this for anyway. So you might want to set up the Lite version if you have no intention of using any of the other features that are built into the regular version of PlayStation Vue with the payload menu. And of course, to install the Lite version, you just simply copy the download0.dat file to the user download CUSA00960 folder using FTP, and you'll be able to get that copied over and updated to the new version. Now, there's also been an update to the regular version that includes the menu, which is a new themes option that can be accessed in the config settings. So you can install additional themes to completely customize how the menu looks. So for instance, I downloaded this Fallout 4 theme from this particular repo here. And to install a theme, you want to have the new version installed, the download0.dat file from the latest version, not the Lite version, obviously, but the main version. And then also when you're running the PlayStation Vue application, you can then access the raw files in the sandbox directory by going into the MNT folder, and then the sandbox directory, and then the CUSA00960 folder. And in there, there's a download0 folder that you're going to go into, and then you will find a themes folder if you're running the latest version. It now includes a themes folder, so you go into that themes folder and then copy your theme into that folder alongside the default one. Obviously, don't delete the default one, so you can always switch back to the normal version. And once you have that installed, you can go back to the config menu on PlayStation Vue, and go down to the themes section, which was added in this version. And then you can press X to switch to the different themes that you have installed. So I can switch it to the Fallout theme. And then when I press circle to go back to the main menu, it will load that theme. And you can see that the PlayStation Vue application is completely transformed with this new theme. So it kind of looks like the Pip-Boy or terminal from Fallout 4, which is pretty cool. And obviously you still have all of the same options. It's just a customization. So you still have the config menu and the payload menu, all of the same options, but the UI is completely custom, which is pretty awesome. And you can expect to see so many new themes get added over the coming days that you can install using this method. So that's the update that's been added to PlayStation Vue. If you like to mess around with the menus, you now have custom themes that you can install. And if you don't like the menus and you just want it to auto-load the jailbreak every time, then you can install the Lite version instead. So this update is likely to get released very soon. At the time I'm recording this video, it's not available yet. If it's still not available at the time you're watching this, then you can get it from the action builds. So you can go there if you have a GitHub account. I'll leave it linked in the video description, and you can download an early version of this update. That's what we've got there with PlayStation Vue. Now, another update to PlayStation 4. This one has been getting a lot of attention, so I feel like it's worth addressing in this video. So we have a post that's kind of gone viral on Twitter here from Eldor Guy saying latest side project is PSN Emulation. And you can see him signing into what appears to be PlayStation Network on a jailbroken PS4, which is of course not what's actually happening here. Check the first reply, which is a clarification from the original poster here, who says, to clarify, this is running completely standalone from the official servers. While this wouldn't magically enable online play on the vast majority of games, it could serve as a backbone to aid in emulating game-specific backends. Any game that purely use PSN should just work. So it's not actually giving you access to PlayStation Network, it's just emulating PlayStation Network so that you can effectively log in and access the same features on your PS4 that you have when you are signed into PSN, but you're not actually signed into PSN. It could also be set up to use a private server so that when you sign in to PlayStation Network, you're actually signing into, a private server instead. And through that, it might be able to enable certain features like the ability to add friends or send messages perhaps could be included, and maybe the ability to also connect to other people on certain games that only use PSN for the connection. And you could perhaps use this in the future to play with other players online, but it would only be other people who also have a jailbroken PS4 that are signed into the same server. You would not be able to actually play with other people who are on PSN. But still an interesting project and something that I would definitely like to see get developed further. Another quick mention for the PlayStation 4 is that we also have PS4 Linux Payloads up to firmware 13.02. Now, yes, 13.02 doesn't have a jailbreak right now, so we can't load Linux on that firmware. But the important thing is that 12.50, 12.52, and 13.0 now have working Linux payloads. Not only that, there's also been a black screen fix for PlayStation 4 Pros. A lot of PS4 Pros have the issue where you just get a black screen when trying to boot into the operating system or trying to boot Linux. So that appears to have been fixed in this particular version by Arab Pixel. So definitely go ahead and check this out if you're having problems running Linux, or you've been wondering how can I load Linux on firmwares above 12.02. Well, they're now available here, and I've added this link in the description of my Linux tutorial as well. And I'll leave that video linked down in the video description. And for the PS5, we now have a new test build of etaHEN 2.6B, which now expires on March 17th, with a number of updates to the plugin system that have been implemented here, with the new plugin system that's going to be added in version 2.6. And this also adds a fix for the FPS counter for all firmwares, which now supports PS5 games and applications. So you can get your FPS counter working on PS5 applications, whereas the previous version only worked on PS4 apps. EchoStretch has also released a new version of the dump installer for installing your game dumps, which now supports ffpkgs, which are of course the UFS2 images that can be loaded instead of just having all of your game files inside a folder. So that's now supported within the dump installer. Now, ShadowMount continues to be updated by Drakmore. We have a new ShadowMount Plus 1.5 Beta 2, and previous versions of this added support for UFS2 image loading, so ffpkgs. It now works with a large number of folders, eliminates duplicate operations, correct game registration, mounting images as read-only by default now, and correct unmounting and deleting folders on shutdown and restart, plus the ability to customize folders for scanning. So we continue to see updates to ShadowMount while Void Shell is still in development. And last thing to mention here, EchoStretch and EarthOnion have managed to actually get PFS loading. Smaller than ffpkg's, the downside is that load times are slow. Minecraft gameplay seems fine once everything is fully loaded. Not sure yet whether this is a PFS or KStuff issue. So yeah, the idea here, obviously we have ffpkg's, which are UFS2 images where you can take your PS5 game dumps, turn them into a UFS2 image, so it's easier to transfer it over to the console. It'll transfer over faster as a single file. The problem is the file ends up being larger than the actual game dump itself. Now, the idea here is that instead of using UFS2 images, they're using PFS files instead, which may have a slight advantage over the UFS2 images, because the problem with the UFS2 files is they tend to be larger than the actual game dump itself, because it's effectively an image file that has to contain the game dump. So the image file has to be larger. It can't be smaller than the actual game dump itself because it has to fit the game dump inside. So that's the issue there, and there's no compression. I don't believe there's really any compression with the PFS files either, but I believe the files will end up being smaller than the UFS2 images, so probably about the same size as the actual game dump itself, but it will be one file, so it should transfer over faster. But there is a downside at the moment, which is that load times seem to be a lot longer. Now, since then, EchoStretch has provided an update saying still slow to load the menu, but EarthOnion and I have managed to get loading directly from the PFS location without having to copy it to internal storage. The next step is to speed it up, so they are looking at trying to improve the speed of loading the applications as a PFS image. But anyway, that's going to basically do it here for this video, so hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I'll hopefully see you guys